Hey everyone, welcome back to your Resident Evil channel. Alright guys, today we are talking about Eternals the movie. Alright, before I give you the spoiled review, I'm gonna give you the unspoiled review. I'm thinking I'm gonna give this movie about a 7.5 out of 10. For me. Okay, because there's a lot of stuff that just like irked me, and then just a lot of stuff that was good. Overall, I think it has a pretty good plot. It's just such a trippy plot. When you actually think about it, you're just like, wow, that's just a lot. That's just a lot to handle. And the thing is, they are part of the Marvel universe, so I'm actually very curious as to see like how they're going to move forward with the rest of like the MCU and how they're gonna what their role will be considering and just what the future of the MCU and how they're gonna address all the questions that they've left unanswered. So that's basically my thing about the Eternals. They've just I don't know. Is it too trippy? Should they even be part of the MCU? Should they just be their own thing? Like I'm okay, technically they are Marvel characters and everything, but should they actually be part of the MCU? Should they just have like their own Disney verse? I don't know. That's just me. What do you guys think? Leave a comment down below. All right, now for the completely spoiled review. The reason why I personally am not giving it like a 10 out of 10 or anything, it's not something to do necessarily with how trippy it is. It's just all the other details just really annoyed me, and mostly the characters. God, the characters. I loathe the characters. Like there was not a single character that I'm like, wow, I am so attached to you. You're like really great. Um, there was Gilgamesh. He was great. He was funny, and then he dies. Then we have Tinkerbell. Like oh, her name is Sprite. Do you guys remember Thundercats? Do you guys remember Sprite? Sprite. I swear, they're like the same thing, except I could deal with that Sprite. I was just like God, and her just stupid. Like I don't know. There's something about her like love towards him that was just so annoying and so out of place. Okay. Here's one thing that docked it a full point for me. Here's one thing that docked it a full point for me was the fact that we get the brothers from Game of Thrones back together. We literally have Jon Snow and Robb Stark back together on the same screen, and you're gonna have me to understand that they're sort of like enemies for some girl. I'm sorry. Do you guys remember the reunion between Jon Snow and Sansa Stark? Right? Sansa never liked Jon. She had the same disdain that her mother did towards him. But then, with everything, all the trauma, everything that she had been through, she understood the value of family, and she understood that, wow, Jon isn't a horrible guy, that there's like 10,000, there was just so much about the relationship that culminated in that one moment where they see each other and they embrace each other in this beautiful moment. Obviously, thanks to the Red Wedding. Okay, we're gonna have some Game of Thrones spoilers here. Obviously, thanks to the Red Wedding, Jon and Robb never had that moment. They only had that moment, like that kind of like that goodbye where they didn't know it was gonna be a goodbye type of thing. And then when Jon finds out that Robb's going to war, he can't because he's a knight. And I'm telling you, you're gonna have the brothers in a movie, and yes, this is what upset me, and not even like interact in any friendly manner. Like, I'm sorry, and y'all did not make a brothers joke in that, like, brothers. Like, how, what, like, oh. That truly docked it a full point for me. And I stand by that statement because you can't put them in the same movie and not do anything with it. I swear, if I were to cast them as something, I would do something. I would have them hug it out. Just have nothing to do. Just completely. Okay. All right, I'm done. That was the rant I was gonna go through. All right, and then we have TikTok. You eat something. So there were some like Eternal content that I was avoiding because I wanted to watch the movie. I didn't want to get spoiled. But certain things like they come up. So one of the things was like, oh, the couple that Eternals wants you to love, but the couple you actually love. And I was just found it so funny that I'm like, I see it now, because they were really also a dumb couple. Also, here's the one thing that gets to me, and I can't even believe it. We have Salma Hayek character who's kind of like this omnipresence almost type of like character that they built for her. I think they did a really good job. I think if you've watched a lot of Salma Hayek's work, and especially like her early stuff where she's just like this unbelievable sex symbol, and then to see her do this role where she's a kind of like what is the word she's like kind of a Jor-El of the Eternals. She's just like she's just like the Dumbledore of the Eternals. There we go. That's the best analogy, I think. She's the Dumbledore of the Eternals, And I'm just like, I just love that. I honestly, that's why it's not like a whole 7. It's a 7.5 because honestly, that was beautiful, especially because she's a great actress. I personally like her stuff sometimes, so it's just really cool to see her in that type of role. Where was I going with this? Yeah, I just couldn't believe that. Yes, I'm not actually gonna call them by their names because Icarus. Because I kind of forgot their same names. So Icarus, betrays Salma Hayek's character, and I'm like, what? Like it wasn't believable enough. And I think this is my critique of most Marvel movies. And now that, especially the newer ones, they're doing too much in one movie. I think Eternals, like that movie, we could have slowed things down, backed it up, and made it 2 movies, right? I think that would have been like, I like that they explained why they weren't part of like the whole Thanos situation. That makes sense. I respect that. But it just didn't make sense to me why there was just way too much going on for me for the Eternals, and you couldn't delve into like the specific relationship. Like, you frankly don't care about any of the characters because they're doing way too much with the bigger plot. You don't care about Cersei or Icarus. You don't care about Cersei leaving the Jon Snow character. You don't care about Sprites falling in love with him. You don't care that they all somehow disbanded, even though they were supposed to be like a family. You don't care. And that's the thing. I'm like, if we go back, let's take like a million steps back to the first Spider-Man, you guys. I can totally go into a deep dive about why the first Spider-Man was the best Spider-Man. 2002, Tobey Maguire. I cannot. If you go back to the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, it's kind of slow paced. We get that character growth, and you care about each character. You care about Peter. You care about Harry. You care about his dad. You care about how he loses his company. You get all these details, and you get action sequences. I think you get in that particular movie, you get maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like between 5 to 7 action sequences in all of that movie. That with one villain. And I think now Marvel movies, they're just trying to have this new shock value, trying to be the new thing. But I'm like, sometimes new isn't always better. Let's take a step back. Let's slow things down. Make me care about the Eternals. This is the first time, especially for a lot of people, the first time that they're learning about the Eternals who don't necessarily are like huge comic book nerds. So again, for me, I had no idea of anything about the Eternals coming in. I didn't know that they kind of had like Greek goddess type of like mentality, like the legends of. Anyways, so it was really cool. So certain aspects I would have loved them to deep dive more in, but they didn't because they were just doing way too much and just creating this like super matrixy world that now just makes me contemplate my own existence. Okay, so that's okay. I loved and hated that, by the way. The whole overall plot, right? Like, because essentially the plot is the meaning of life. Because one could argue that I already forgot the villain's name, so I apologize. But here's a picture of him. That this guy is God, right? And he's created life that creates life. Because things destroy, kind of like the circle of life. Also, there was a lot, like an insane amount of Lion King references in this movie. Like, I'm just like, what is with? And this is not the first time Marvel has like seriously like just like been nitpicky with Lion King, and I'm just like, what is? I mean, Lion King's a great movie, but damn, do we really need this many Lion King references? Like, it's a lot. It's getting to be a lot. Where was I with this? Yeah. So this guy, he's kind of God, and then we have the Matrix type of mentality where like he keeps destroying like life needs to destroy life to create life, and I keep erasing people's memories, and it's a little too trippy for me, and like someone who's currently going through her like I don't even want to know if it's a quarter life crisis, but something like more like I'm trying to figure out what the meaning of life is, because it's just getting to the point where I'm like, why am I doing all this? Anyways, but so this movie is just heightening that like that mentality that I'm just like, I don't need this heightened right now, because they on top of that, they don't even give an answer. I just love the fact that they essentially learn that they are robots in like what the whole master plan is, and they're like, we need free will, because again, this is like God and his people. It's like honestly so much analogy with God and people, so much there. And they're essentially going like they're just like, we want to be free, we want to do whatever we want, we don't care that like, and I'm just like, you guys aren't really questioning a lot enough for this to make sense. Like, I don't know, some things, like a lot of things just don't make sense. And then all I kept thinking in the back of my head was Loki and the variants, and I'm like, in what way? Because if you guys have watched the show Loki, how does the variants and the deviants play? Because the little monsters in Eternals will call them deviants, and then we have the variants and the Loki show, and I'm like, how does this all play in the grand scheme? Like, I mean, obviously Marvel is building up to something. That's why they're releasing these types of movies, and I get it. But at the same time, I'm like, you guys aren't answering. You guys are leaving so many things. We're trying to build this big, huge universe, and I'm like, you guys need to take a step back and go all the way back to the Avengers movie. Because as much as I'm personally not a fan of the Avengers movie, that's just my own personal opinion, it does make more sense because they started off small. They had to gain. We learned a little bit about each character, about each superhero, who they were, where they were in life. That's exactly. And I'm like, the Eternals didn't do that well of a job of like making me care. I care more about the Avengers, which is again a movie I'm not a big fan of, than I did of the Eternals. And the reason why the Avengers, even their movie, they skip a couple of steps, but the reason why they got away with it because again, the Avengers are pretty established just in comic books. Like they're very big in comic books, but Eternals are not. Not unless you. So it's kind of like then it's like DC Comics. Like we don't really need like 100 origin stories for Batman because everyone knows the origin of the Batman. Like inherently at this point. Same thing with Superman. We already know inherently that. Like the origin of Superman, like some characters, whether maybe Wonder Woman, you don't know as much. She's still pretty big, like you know enough that you're like, oh, she's Wonder Woman, the lasso of truth, like that. Those things click, but there's other stuff. So again, it's just too much. Also, can we talk about real quick how they pretty much set up Rob Stark's character as a great Superman? Like as I was watching this before he even said the Superman line, I was like, he could make a good Superman, and then sure enough, and I'm like, so. Are we just all supposed to? Oh, so what was that? Okay, I just remembered the scene where he literally flies into the sun, and I'm like, seriously, he flew too close to the sun, and I'm just like, did this really need to happen? Was that like? I was like, that's just a little too cheesy for me. Was I alone in that one? So yeah, so that's. Yeah, that's pretty much all, like, in a round, long-winded way of me saying, what is their purpose in this? And then we get, okay, now going to the cutscenes, we get Harry Styles. I thought that was a joke, you guys. You have no idea. Like, when people were like, he's confirmed in the MCU, I swear I still didn't believe it. I swear I still thought it was rumors. I had no idea that he was legitimately confirmed, right? And then I'm like, oh, so he's legitimately Thanos' brother. Like, what? And I'm like, why Harry Styles? Like, of all people, why? I'm just like, and then we get Jon Snow's character. Someone told me that his character is gonna be a vampire, like something to do with that, something along those lines. So, and that was another thing. I'm like, you guys hint at certain stuff that I'm like, wow, I don't care. Like, they truly like every other like going back to the beginning of like the Avengers and Marvel, the cutscenes. You cared. You were like, you would sit on your edge and you would wait. They cut to the character. They cut 10 years. I mean, now they show these cutscenes and I'm like, okay, I don't care. Even in Shang-Chi, when we get that, and like, I don't care. And granted, I did really enjoy Shang-Chi. Like, to be honest, but I think we need to go back. I think we need to go back. Not just for Marvel, but I think a lot of superheroes, we need to take a step back and go back to the origins of superhero movies just a little bit, so we can remember why these characters are still beloved. Because again, at the end of the day, I don't care enough about the Eternals. I could care less. The only character in the Eternals that I actually semi-cared for was Angelina Jolie's character, Athena. She was the only one, because she had this really cool story. She was the one who remembered all her past lives. She's Trigger. She's constantly trying to fight people. Like, that was really, like, I'm like, we just need a whole movie of her. Like, that was brilliant. That was great. She was frankly the only one I cared about. Everyone else I didn't care about. And that sucks because they had such a great lineup of actors. You guys, I'm like, what did you do? What did you do? Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna stick with my 7.5, but maybe if I rewatch it, it might go lower, you guys. The more I talk about it, the more I'm like, I'm a little upset right now. I thought it'd be a little bit better. I was hoping it'd be a little bit better. But let's see what the role that they play in the MCU. Let's see what the next steps are. Let's see if I can care about these characters. That's the thing. I'm like, I don't care. And I'm like, yeah, that's my biggest critique. We need to care about these characters. But anyways, let me know what you guys think of the Eternals. What you guys think. And leave a comment down below. More videos to come. Leave a comment down below about any other movies you would like me to review. I can definitely do that. Or any other things you want me to talk about on this channel. Alright, bye.